Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show today. Robbie, what do we have?
Well, Brianna Joy Gray is here with us to discuss CNN host Chris Cuomo's suspension from the network after new documents showed he helped his brother, former governor of New York Andrew Cuomo, navigate his sexual harassment allegations. Then Kim Iverson is joining us, of course, later in the show. She's going to break down how the Supreme Court is taking up a case today that could reverse the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade decision that declared a women's constitutional right to abortion.
This week also marks the start of the Ghislaine Maxwell child sex trafficking case. And while we knew high-profile names of the global elite were at least familiar with Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, to put it gently, we're starting to get more details about how they interacted with each other and what that could mean for the case. Jeffrey Epstein's former pilot, Larry Vysotsky, testified that powerful men flew aboard Epstein's private plane. We already knew that, but some of the names he dropped in court are renowned violinist Yitzhak Perlman, Prince Andrew, Senators George Mitchell and John Glenn, actor Kevin Spacey, and former presidents Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. The pilot said he would often be given notice if high-profile passengers would be flying.
Like many of those said to have been seen with Epstein, Clinton's spokesperson has previously admitted that the former president was aboard Epstein's plane 4 times, but knew nothing about Epstein's, quote, terrible crimes. In addition to the pilot's testimony, the first of 4 of Maxwell's accusers took the stand. The accuser, identified in court as Jane, said Maxwell befriended her when she was just 14, and that led to abuse by both Epstein and Maxwell. And yeah, I think Trump had said previously that, yeah, I knew the guy, and, you know, I mean, there's pictures of him, obviously, so they can't deny it, but he says he didn't know anything about what, and then he cut him out of his life.
Well, if you're Q, you say that this was a long scheme of Trump's to ingratiate himself.
Right.
That he was really just undercover with the pedophile ring.
Exactly.
In order to later expose it when he became president. However, as part of this cover job, he gave an interview, was it Vanity Fair, who did a profile of Jeffrey Epstein, and Trump is quoted saying, Jeffrey Epstein, he likes girls really young. Like he's on the record, this is like the 90s saying this. So I think everyone knew that. And by the way, in 2008-9, like he was arrested for this.
Right.
So the decade after that, it was already on record that this was a fact. But previous to that, these global elites, they knew. Like they knew what his reputation was. Trump, unlike a lot of other elites, is the only one that's going to give text to it. Who's going to like just say it out loud. Oh yeah, this guy that I fly around with, he likes really young girls. Like that's who Trump is.
Of course.
Like everybody knew Trump's the guy who actually just comes out and says it.
Yeah, but he's the one who can sneakily infiltrate a global pedophile ring and expose it because he has the savvy and the.
But apparently he didn't have the savvy to prevent his either assassination or his suicide. So his
assassination slash suicide.
Trump, always the right idea, just the follow through lacking.
Follow through lacking.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe next time.
That must be the problem. Lauren Boebert yesterday sort of seemed to imply that the attack on her lately over her Islamophobic jokes that she likes to tell at her, like she does this Islamophobic bit where she thinks it's funny to say that Ilhan Omar is like a suicide bomber.
Jihad squad, yeah.
Yeah. That Democrats are coming after her to distract from the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. So she posted on Twitter, like the Ghislaine Maxwell trial is going to be, this week. So look for more misguided rage and misdirection from the left, because according to her, I guess Epstein is actually kind of an avatar of the left, and that this is a giant left-wing plot.
Because it's a Hollywood-ish adjacent. You can
and you can explain Trump because he was undercover and he's there to bust the thing.
Yeah.
Explaining Les Wexner, the Republican billionaire whose money financed the entire operation, is a little bit more difficult. Mm-hmm. Like, why would a Republican billionaire finance the thing? And maybe, I guess, So if he's financing it, then it's a honey trap for all the leftists.
Certainly.
That Trump is then going to go in and identify and then expose.
I think we solved the whole trial.
And bring the whole thing down. So
I
So
we solved the
Wexner's
whole
part
trial.
of the whole. Wexner was in on it from the beginning.
Where was Antifa when Epstein was suicided? That's what I want to know.
That's a good question. Yeah, if we had the video cameras.
We're just asking the important questions here. But
know.
Fox News, Geraldo Rivera actually seemed to defend, not obviously what Maxwell is accused of, but defended her, said she's been treated unjustly. So let's take a look at that.
I am outraged by the Maxwell case. You talked about Darrell Brooks, the creep who ran over his girlfriend, then killed 6 people in the parade, and he was out of $1,000 bail. Ghislaine Maxwell has been in jail for 17 months for no bail. They gave her no bail. She is sitting in prison prior to trial, accused, get this, of events that happened between 1994 and 1997.
She's a flight risk.
A flight risk.
Rivera hasn't been the only one in legacy media to display sympathy for Epstein's so-called number 2, her situation that she's in. At the start of the trial, Bloomberg News tweeted, Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking trial is set to be one of the biggest of the Me Too era, but the jury may have to grapple with a unique question. Is Maxwell herself a victim? And so Geraldo got attacked, everywhere, and by the other hosts. I think that was on the 5. And it was funny how he worded that. I do think, we're against solitary confinement for anyone. In general, people being held in prison for a long time before trial is not a just situation. Everyone deserves due process. You should not be imprisoned before you've been convicted of something. Now, she is clearly a flight risk, so they could not just, I don't know what he was getting. She would flee to a place that doesn't have extradition. She has... no, you can't do that. Now, and I think because of the situation with COVID, I think that had something to do with the trial getting delayed, so it's not a normal situation. She should not have had to wait in prison that long, but they couldn't have the trial, and they couldn't let her go, obviously.
All of that doesn't justify mistreatment in prison, because we're a civilized society. We've got to treat even the worst of the worst with the dignity that all human people deserve, but that doesn't mean letting a flight risk out who has showed no interest in being caught, put it that way, and was staying in some New Hampshire cottage that she had paid for with cash. There were indications that she was a flight risk for sure, and she's got friends all over the country, that sort of thing. Now the Bloomberg thing is interesting too, to try to frame this as a Me Too issue, and for sure, a couple things. Thanks to the Me Too movement, I think there was a renewed look, and also thanks to Julie Brown's reporting in the Miami Herald, there was a renewed look at the Epstein case. So I think it's true that energy around that movement, helped give prosecutors and the media a renewed interest in this case. And of course, it does involve sexual assault and sexual abuse. All of that said, it's so much deeper and broader than just Me Too, because it's not just about workplace sexual harassment. It's not just about misogyny. It's also about the way that an unaccountable global elite moves with impunity, and even in the face of a conviction back in 10 years earlier, this trafficking ring just continues. And despite all the reputational risk and the legal risk, you still have people like Clinton, like Trump, like Prince Andrew, still willing to associate with this guy, still going to his parties, still flying on his plane. You have questions about what intelligence agencies he was in contact with or an agent of. People talk about Israel, people talk about Russia, the United States. And Steve Bannon has said that he thought, that he assumed that there were intelligence connections involved. A lot of people who are close to this case think that clearly that's the case. And so you had this window into how global power actually works, which takes it so far beyond just the question of is Ghislaine Maxwell both a victim and an assailant? Which is an interesting question, but it's only part of the story. Yeah.
Well, and he's, this story is it's exactly as you said. It's about how someone can evade suffering serious consequences for vile criminal behavior that is well known to lots of people for a long time. Right. And it's just, in our over-policed society, right? The underclass The less privileged are over-policed. But people with this access to power and fame and resources, they can evade capture for forever.
Right.
And
they are the power.
Right. And it took this massive, sudden social reckoning with sexual misconduct to create enough political will to hold him to account despite all of that.
Right. And they'll manage to only hold to account him, and then Maxwell. And the rest of the people will move on.
They'll get on some other plane.
There you go.
We'll tell you what's on our radars coming up next. You won't want to miss that.